EdTech Monday Kenya is brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation's Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT and EdTech East Africa. Last year, to celebrate the International Women's Day, we discussed the challenges that girls and young women face in accessing quality education in Africa and how technology can bridge those gaps. In 2022, we take this conversation to the next level.
Global statistics show that women represent around 39% of the global workforce, but less than 20% of tech workers are female, and only 19% of all computer science degrees are held by women. Data shows that women in technology are also being promoted at a slower rate than their male counterparts. While 86% of women are in management across sectors, only 52% of technical management roles are filled by women. With the increase in use of big data and the demand for integration of AI and machine learning technologies, all industries are being disrupted, and education is no different. Yet the prevalence of women in leadership roles in education and technology in Kenya mirror those at the global level. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow being the International Women's Day theme this year, our EdTech Monday Kenya edition focuses on celebrating Kenyan women who have broken glass ceilings and succeeded in the education and technology space. We aim to learn from them and from their stories as well as hard-earned wisdom to see how we can support more women into leadership in EdTech in Kenya. Our panelists today are Esther Gashishio, who is an EdTech consultant and co-founder of e-learning solutions ELS, a company leveraging on digital technology to design, deliver, and deploy learning and training solutions across the spectrum to the youth, to institutions, as well as corporates. We also have Tracy Shundu, who is the founder of Funky Science, a platform that promotes interactive learning of science among school children through fun activities, experiments, as well as tutorials using simple and common household materials that they can identify with. We also have Josephine Milisa, who is the Africa Policy Coordinator for the Association of Progressive Communications LockNet project hosted by the Kenya ICT Action Network in Nairobi, Kenya. And ladies, it's so good to have you on the show today and this month as well. Of course, it's Women's Month. And I must say, having succeeded at your different capacities, the question I would like to start with, rightfully so, is how have you gotten to where you are? What has it taken to get to where you are? I'm going to start with Esther.
Thank you, Jo. It's nice to have me and happy to be here. Well, education technology for me was a very interesting journey. First, I landed in it by accident. I was moving sections, and the only available section at that point in time was in education technology when it was very, very new, way back in 2006. And it was in a situation whereby you didn't really know about e-learning then. There wasn't a lot of stories about what education technology was. And we learned from South Africa. I remember we were being trained on how to do it then. And where soon after I got some opportunity to go study in Sri Lanka, education technology, and that's when it began to make sense that you can have solutions in education using technology. But it was very hard when I came back because trying to introduce a new technology, a new way of doing things, when it was not really known, was very, very hard. So it took a lot of resilience, a lot of focus, a lot of pushing to get it there. My first time, I remember we had to present to the board, and you had to really convince them that it works. And there were no computers then. So we had 2 makeshift computers where we worked on them and made them a server so that from the boardroom you could actually now show them exactly what we meant, that we can actually teach online. And they allowed us then to start off. So from that time henceforth, well, it's been a tedious journey trying to really bring on board technology in education, and it's only now during COVID that it made sense. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. And just reimagining and visualizing that particular situation of you in the boardroom trying to make people understand that e-learning can actually happen.
Yeah.
And look at where we are today.
Exactly.
You know, e-learning is the new normal.
Yeah.
Tracy, what has it taken for you?
Thank you, Joy. For me, I'd say science and the whole aspect of me getting into education started when I was very young. My mom had a business selling cakes, and for me, I always wondered, why was the tin almost halfway, and then by the time the cake comes out, it's full at the top of the cake, and I'm wondering, okay, what is going on here? And now fast forward to when I got into university and started studying industrial chemistry, I started now interacting with students from across the country, from different places around the country, and speaking to their stories around how they got into science. And for most of us who are selected for by the JAB, so it's the government that selects for you, the best students get to do this course. But many of them had not interacted with a lab setting. Many of them had not actually done a lot of these experiments that we were doing. So their confidence level in the classroom was very low. And I'd be there like, you know, you guys, we can do this together. Let's do the experiments. But for many of them, they're like, let's watch and see what the teacher is doing. Let's slow down a bit. And that confidence was not there. Also, something that we did when we were in university, we were part of the Story Moja Hay Festival, which was a literary event, and they didn't have science material. So a friend of mine approached me and said, you know what, you could actually do science courses for the kids that come.
Right.
And we realized some of our experiments, the parents are the ones who are part of doing the experiments and not really the kids. So this is what actually ignited the spark between me and my co-founder to actually do practical science learning for kids.
Josephine?
Thank you, Joy, for having me. I relate quite a lot to Esther's story. Because I did network engineering in university, and after graduating I always had a push towards the not-for-profit sector, although I really didn't know how I would connect the non-for-profit and technology, because I always wanted to work with communities. So in 2015 I joined an organization called Tunapanda in Kibera, which aims to bridge the digital divide. And at that time, there was a project on setting up a wireless network to serve the community. So I think for me, that's when my light bulb went on. But for the next 2 years, it was just grappling because I didn't really understand just what exactly we were trying to achieve, because there were not other projects doing a similar thing. And we visited an institute in Italy. That's when I was introduced to the world of community networks, and I found a name to what we were actually trying to do. So since then, when I reflect on my journey, I think it's a lot of passion for communities, passion for, you know, seeing opportunities for youth who would be marginalized in our current setting, and also a lot of resilience. Similar to Esther, you're trailblazing a field that or going through a journey that no one else has walked, and so there are not so many people that you can turn to and, you know, get advice from. And also for me, being in that particular role as a full-time volunteer, the expectation that I would have taken a different route to get better paying job was also a challenge. So I think resilience and passion are what have brought me here today.
I love that. And I think passion and resilience also are what Esther talked about. So passion, resilience, as well as confidence that Tracy talked about as well. So, you know, Esther, coming back to you, you've been in the EdTech space for 25 years. I mean, you have seen it all. You've been there at the evolution of things, you know, and you're so big, you know, when it comes to designing, delivering, and deploying learning and training solutions across the spectrum to not just young people, but also to corporates as well as learning institutions. Are there a unique set of skills that you think women need to have today to be able to change how things are being done? And also, what do women bring to the table that the other gender doesn't seem to bring, that you think we can be able to gel and complement each other for the better?
Thank you, Joy. I think I'll start from that last part of what you've asked, what women can bring onto the table. By nature, women are problem solvers, and therefore, with the support that they need, or support to do something, they're actually able to do quite a bit. And at the same time, women are go-getters. They're creative and innovative in nature. A woman will not sit down and watch their child die out of hunger. They will figure out something and get something for them to eat. But having said that, for women to be in EdTech, in education technology, besides having that innovative intuition within them and that hunch that they can solve things. They still need to get support. They need to get the skills around that. So the women need skills, just like the male gender does, for them to get things working for them in as far as education technology is concerned. They, of course, will require the hard skills as we know them. They need to know the technology that they'll be working with. They need to be aware and alive that in technology it changes very fast, and they need to be aware of that and change with the times as they come. So they need to up their skill, because it's one thing to be a woman and want to get space in a male-dominated field, but it's another if you do not have the skill that is required. So fight for whatever it is you want on that space, but have also the skill that is required. Mm-hmm. So not only do you need the hard skills, the technical know-how of what you need to do, but you also need to have communication skills that will enable you to express yourself, learn how to be collaborative, have cultural competencies that are very key when you come to education technology or in technology in nature.
All right. Tracy, when it comes to women in the STEM space, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we have observed over the years that there's a high dropout when you compare girls and boys, both at their early learning level all the way into higher education and into the workspace as well. What happens in between there? How do we pick up the interest? How we keep the momentum, keep the girls interested in STEM all the way to employment level? Mm-hmm. What needs to be done to ensure that happens?
So that's a very interesting question, because those are some of the things that as Funky Science we also try and tackle. Dealing with children between the age of 3 to 13, there are a lot of things that happen to children at that age, and especially girls. So that comes around also trying to change their thinking around learning and around science. Mm-hmm. So that's typically breaking down gender stereotypes around science. So it could be something as simple as, instead of buying a doll for your little girl today, you could even buy a science kit, you know? You could even buy maybe a lab coat for them to wear today, or safety goggles, you know, something that sort of brings out that as much as you're still a girl, you can still explore something around science. And it could be very simple things. Just like how we teach simple science in Funky Science, it's something simple as even just baking soda and vinegar and doing a simple experiment with your child in the house.
I like that. Yeah. Josephine, you know, and Tracy has touched a bit on that. Looking at the societal factors, you know, instead of buying your baby girl a doll or a Barbie doll, then you're able to buy them a science kit and tell them, by the way, you know, you can also do this. But looking at the societal factors affecting the uptake of education and technology as a whole, how do you think role models and mentors step in to encourage the equalizing factor? That we are now not just looking at girls as being lesser than, but as bringing to the table something equal or just equivalent to what the male or boys and men are able to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. The role of role models and mentors can never be understated, because seeing is believing. Mm-hmm. And so when women walk into a room, or young women or girls walk into a room, when they see Esther, when they see Tracy, there's a level of confidence that they get, that they can actually be able to do what these two incredible women are doing. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that there are more people speaking, just as Tracy has mentioned, more women sharing their stories of their journey, and also opening up doors for the women or the young women that are coming after them. But also because in the technology world, it's really male dominated. It's also important to have male role models or mentors. I, for example, have benefited from having male mentors. For example, at Tunapanda, when I got in, I wanted to be like very much in the background, because I did networking for a reason. Mm-hmm. I spent my time in server rooms and not having to interact with people. Yes. Yeah, but when I got to Tunapanda, actually one of the founders, Jay Larson, really pushed me to be, and gave me a role to do partnerships, you know. So when you go to events, I'll be the one to speak to people. And I remember this time we went for a pitching event, and all the panelists were seated at a table being given given the brief. And I was so timid, I went and sat next to him and I thought, these people are quite qualified in their field. I don't think that I will be able to, you know, to relate. And he told me, no, you go sit there because you deserve to be there and you have the potential. So that was a great confidence boost for me. And over the years, even up to now, role models for mentors for me, such as Michuki Mwangi from Internet Society, my current bosses, Carlos Rey Moreno, have been very great mentors to open doors for me, because even when you get into some rooms, you might still be overlooked because you're a woman. And so if you have champions within, women champions within the room, they will actually give the mic to you to speak. So I'm very privileged to have had that, but I think it's a space that we need to nurture and grow if we want to see more women in technology and education.
Absolutely. Is it to say that there are certain areas of technology that women would rather not venture into, or are they there but they're not given the opportunity to? And how do we innovate better to ensure that this happens?
Well, I think, I don't know if it's Tracy or Josephine who mentioned something about women being shy. I think also Josephine has talked about wanting to stay at the back. But I guess it's because of the kind of stereotyping that has been there before, that there are certain jobs that are for women and certain jobs for men. So I want to believe that for us to take up the space, as I mentioned earlier on, you need to come out to the front to be seen, so that you can take up those opportunities. Women need to change the way they look at things. They need to be open-minded so that they're able to get to go to those spaces that we are talking about. But having said that, culturally and the kind of way our societies are built, they still don't see women as taking up certain kind of roles. And it's about time that that narrative changed. And so that we can have women taking up roles just the way men can take up roles. And in most cases, you realize that there are those jobs that women take which are meant to be for men, and they do it much better than the men can do. So for us to do this, I think as a community, as a nation, as a country, we need to change this narrative.
Does it have something to do with the policies?
Yes, it does have something to do with the policies. That is one part. But also we need to start lobbying for women to take up the spaces. We need to expose the women into these education technologies. They need to know that it matters before we come to the part of the policies. Because it's only when the women voice out that the government and other stakeholders will listen to them, and now we come to the policies.
And now to Tracy, because as you can see from what Esther has said, and also from further research that I've been doing, it just appears that there's not really enough policy around supporting women in education and technology per se. And this does point to certain gender biases that we have observed also in this education and technology space. These systemic barriers, of course, will come up even in issues like fundraising or even accessing growth opportunities for female entrepreneurs, especially those of them in technology like yourself. So what has helped you to overcome these challenges?
Interesting question, because sometimes when I think back when we started in 2016, a lot has changed in the technology landscape in the country and globally as well. So you'd find there are more, I'd say, female-led funders and founders out there who are geared towards just funding startups that are run by women or businesses that are run by women. There are even different initiatives that have been started up just specifically for women. But in my journey, what I have seen and what has really helped me is joining around lots of communities. So like EdTech East Africa has a community where they have now different EdTech companies that meet up on different days, and you can actually network and meet different people. The different groups, I think I've seen Women Work, KE on Facebook, that actually even gives you different tips and different trainings for women across, I've seen it's across Africa, but I've seen a lot of women also from East Africa learning from that. I also recently joined Kayana. It's a women hub where they actually have conversations around training you as a woman, training you to also understand some of the language that is used around fundraising, some of the language that's used around investment, because you may find that, yes, we have trained in different aspects around STEM, Yes, maybe we would like to start a business or do a startup or do an initiative that can help the community. But from there onwards, how do I build this community further, and how do I continue impacting the community?
I like that. Josephine, earlier you talked about having male mentors and how they play a significant role in making sure that you build your confidence as well. And I think that's one of the things that as girls and women, we tend to ignore a little bit, because we tend to think, okay, because they don't want us to be here, then we don't need to associate with them. But we forget that in order for all of us to succeed, we need to all collectively play a role in ensuring that both male and female are getting these opportunities as well. But what are some of the success stories that you think technology has enabled in educating women in marginalized communities that you deal with specifically?
Yeah, I'd like to share an experience that we had in 2016 for Tunapanda Institute, which is a vocational training center in Kibera. We noticed that we were receiving 70% applications from men and 30% from women. So we started an initiative called Tech Dada, which is just Tech Sisters, which was an outreach program going to high schools to speak to girls about STEM careers. So I remember our first session, we went there and already the girls were quite like not opening up, and we started about, you know, just talking about the opportunities that are there in STEM.
Yeah.
But you could see that they were not connecting to what we were saying. So we then just started with a session on who am I for the girls. So we had a brainstorm, just each of them reflecting on who they are, also on the challenges that they would like to solve in the society. And how now, after that, it's when now we brought on the conversation on technology. So we found that especially for women and girls, the why has to be there. Just learning technology for technology's sake doesn't cut it. So we have to start with, you know, helping girls and women to understand why it's important for them to get into technology spaces. But also beyond that, confidence building is very, very important.
Right, so you have to build their soft skills.
Yes.
Like what skills?
Like pitching is very important. As Tracy, I think Tracy and Esther have mentioned too, you also need to know how to speak the language of the spaces that you get into. So for example, the APC LockNet project, we started a mentorship program last year called Space. And this was to mentor women, especially digital rights activists and community networks, to get into the policy advocacy space. So in policy advocacy, you're mostly speaking to, you know, you speak to government, you speak to regulators, so you have to know the language in the spaces that you would like to occupy.
All right, and that actually sort of brings us close to the end of this conversation, but I don't want us to wind up this conversation without having to encourage young girls and young women out there who are seeing these spaces. They know they actually belong there, but there's something holding them back. Let's speak to those girls and women. What would we want to say to them, Esther?
Well, they need to know, and mainly these girls who are in high school, that we've already broken the ceiling, in the sense that there is no job that is meant for a man or a job for a woman. All jobs are open for everyone. And then they should look into it and think through what they want, and whatever they're interested in, they need to take up that interest. And the major thing maybe we need to do, and I think it was mentioned by Josephine, mentorship is very key, right from high school, where we tell the girls what they need to do, show them that there are people who actually have been able to do that, and even those who are already in the tech world, give them a network where they can work and talk to each other, share their experiences, and help each other grow. Right.
Okay, Tracy?
I'll also echo the sentiments of both Esther and Josephine. Mentorship is key. But I'd say it to be objective and truthful, in the sense that if you're being mentored by someone, you pick someone with a purpose. So you pick them for a reason and for a certain goal, so that they can help you move from step A to step B, and always evaluate every single conversation that you have with them. Because we'll find that we're being given just stories for the sake of being given stories. So why not have a mentor who just gives you the whole truth and nothing but the truth? And I think as women, we should always, use each other as a stepping stone. The cake is so big that we can all share it and enjoy from it. So there's no point of us probably bringing each other down, but just actually being each other's support structure.
Right.
Because I think it's been said that by lighting another candle, you do not lose your flame. And that's one thing that I think as women, we need to encourage other women as they grow, as they come up, or at whatever level. Even I could be being mentored by someone who's younger than me, and they could still help me grow in a different way. So we should always remember we're each other's support structure, and we are going to build each other for the future.
Josephine?
I would say put yourself out there. I think a lot of support can come from external, but at the end of the day, it boils down to yourself. And for women, you find that even if it's a job opportunity or just any sort of opportunity, they want to tick 100% of the requirements. And yet, even with up to 50, just try, because there's no shame in trying. So put yourself out there, get into these spaces, reach out to different people. Rejection, of course, it's inevitable, but it gives you a thick skin that will be able to make you thrive in whatever path you choose to go on.
Great. I like all of these suggestions, all of these opinions, the pieces of advice. And I think that's really a nice way to bring this conversation to a close. And to all the women out there, there is nothing that you cannot do. If you put your mind to it, you can only go all the way up. Thank you all for watching this edition of EdTech Monday Kenya. My name is Joy Doreen Bira, our sign language interpreter, Rose Omolo. Thank you all to the technical crew that made sure this happened seamlessly. And until the next one, you can watch this and all other episodes of EdTech Monday on the Mastercard Foundation YouTube channel. You can also follow the Young Africa Works Facebook page to learn more about this and other Mastercard Foundation programs. Bye for now.
EdTech Monday Kenya is brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT and EdTech East Africa.